For most of my life, urgency felt responsible, productive, necessary. But I'm starting to realize that urgency was also the nervous system's language of survival. Because for as long as I can remember, I have been getting it done. What's the next bill? When's the next appointment? And for who? What's the thing I have to get done today so my life doesn't fall apart tomorrow? Never mind if I don't feel like doing it, if I'm too tired, too overwhelmed, too sleep deprived. Just get it done. That is what surviving looks like. It's this constant internal pressure buzzing in the background. This feeling that you should always be doing something productive. And gradually, over time, it becomes an identity because you haven't experienced any other way. And honestly, it's working for you. Sort of. On the outside, you appear to have it all together. People marvel at your ability to manage your life, your family, your work, the house, the kids' activities. They tell you how strong you are. And after a while, living in anticipation starts to feel like a badge of honor. But what we sacrifice for earning that badge of honor is presence, the enjoyment of life, the ability to pause and actually be in it. I didn't realize how loud the hum of urgency was until it finally got quiet enough for me to feel the difference. And what I realized is this: the nervous system can be so used to pressure that stillness initially feels unfamiliar, uncomfortable even. Urgency starts to feel like personality instead of adaptation. I confuse survival with who I was. And honestly, I didn't know who I was without it because I have been surviving for a very long time now. I don't think I realized how deeply urgency had wired itself into my nervous system until life finally became quiet enough for me to notice it. It's been a gradual shift since I got divorced and my kids went off to college. There's more space in my home now, more space in my head from all the daily management of all the things for other people. It has taken almost 5 years for my nervous system to recover from so many years of constant urgency. I never thought survival mode would linger so long after my external life had changed. My nervous system stayed braced in anticipation as its baseline. I just redirected that energy towards myself. I was always seeking awareness, the answer, trying to understand everything, constantly scanning. What am I doing now? Who am I now? What do I still need to unearth in order to heal? My nervous system had become wired to fix in order to avoid the danger of not surviving. Because the body doesn't immediately trust safety just because life gets quieter. I had more peace externally before I knew how to feel it internally. And it took years for my nervous system to finally come down from that constant high alert and remember what regulation even felt like. Recently, something shifted for me. I had been looking at an area of my life where the healing narrative says it must be tied to not feeling worthy or deserving. You hear the snippets on social media. People repeat them constantly, and eventually you assume they must be true. But what if they aren't? What if the pattern is coming from something entirely different? And I suddenly realized I have always felt worthy and deserving. My personal belief has always been that when your intentions come from love and how you show up in life, that same love returns to you. How you show up for work, your relationships, your family, your friendships, even the strangers you encounter, all of it shapes what you receive. Now, that doesn't mean life won't be hard. Life is hard. But living from the inside out changes the experience of it. And something inside of me let go of the false narrative. What replaced it was a stillness I had never felt at that level. There was no longer the constant hum of I should be doing something in the background. Whatever urgency I had to prove I was worthy and deserving of what I have and what will come into my life completely disappeared. Not because I stopped caring, but because something inside of me finally felt safe enough to stop searching. Now, I know how to relax. I know how to do absolutely nothing. Be still, allow, process, release. But before, even when I was physically resting, my nervous system was still searching, still scanning, still trying to stay ahead of life. The difference is that my nervous system has finally repaired enough that I'm no longer continuously seeking, scanning, proving, performing. It's shifted into a more grounded knowing, more regulation, more discernment. And I would say a stronger desire for what feels internally true. What surprised me most is that the shift wasn't a long, drawn out process in my head. It wasn't something I had to force or repeatedly practice to create a new pathway. Once the connection was made that it had never been about being worthy or deserving, but that my nervous system had created this pattern as a form of safety when I was younger, the shift was immediate. It felt like an entire thread of a belief system that was never truly mine to begin with had been pulled out of me. And in that very moment, the humming stopped. It was replaced by quiet, true stillness without my brain constantly working in the background. The kind of stillness that only comes from safety. And after all the work I've done, I realized I was still carrying fear on a foundational subconscious level. Fear keeps you stuck in activation. Stillness comes from safety. And in an instant, the way I trust myself changed. The things I notice are profound, but internal. Nothing on the outside has changed. Yet everything on the inside feels different. The biggest shift has been no longer confusing pressure with purpose. I know I've been making my life hard for a very long time because constantly doing made me feel farther away from being unsafe. It's like I was constantly running from a flame. And the more I did, the faster I ran, thinking I could get farther away from it. Little did I know that flame was under my feet the entire time. No matter how far I tried to run, I was carrying that fear with me. And now it feels like there's no longer a fire to outrun. I can rest without guilt. I can listen to what my body is telling me instead of bypassing it in the name of productivity. I can tune into what actually feels aligned instead of being drawn to intensity because it feels like more scanning, more seeking, more to figure out. When urgency leaves, what remains becomes much more honest. The drive is still there. I'm just losing the fear that used to drive it. You begin making decisions from clarity instead of activation. You have less tolerance for things that feel internally off and a stronger desire for things that feel true. Your boundaries naturally begin to reflect that shift. There's no longer difficulty saying no, thank you to things that feel off. I'm realizing I don't trust myself less without urgency. I actually trust myself more. Maybe survival mode creates the illusion that pressure is what makes us capable. But groundedness creates a very different kind of strength. And maybe that's what nervous system healing actually feels like. Maybe some of you listening have felt this too. The constant hum in the background, the pressure, the anticipation, the feeling that if you stop moving, everything might catch up to you. And maybe you've mistaken urgency for responsibility for so long that you don't even know how much your nervous system has been carrying. For a long time, I believed that constantly pushing, scanning, fixing, proving, and anticipating was what kept my life together. But what I'm realizing now is that survival and self-trust are not the same thing. Pressure is not purpose, and stillness is not failure. Maybe healing isn't becoming someone new. Maybe it's finally feeling safe enough to stop surviving. Maybe it's allowing yourself to exist without constantly bracing for what might happen next. And maybe the real shift is learning that you can trust yourself, even when fear is no longer the thing pushing you forward. Because the drive can still exist. The care can still exist. The responsibility can still exist. But it no longer has to come from pressure. It can come from presence, from alignment, from groundedness, from safety. And maybe that's what freedom actually looks like. Our shift has ended for today.